Okay, intro to chapter 40 of the Ford haul truck series build. Um, as I had told you in a shop update, I've been having some issues with my wife. She's got health problems, and I've been dealing with that and making some hauls. So not a lot of physical work has been being done on the haul truck. I've been doing some other things, but let me tell you, I have made a couple of videos, and the videos have to do with where this project is going and some changes that I plan on making to the project. So let's delve into that. The first clip that I'm going to show you was actually made the day that I posted the last haul truck video, or the day after that I posted the last haul truck video. And what I'm going to do is throw some inserts in there of things that I found out, updates that I have regarding something that I'm discussing on that haul truck. So I'm going to throw a couple of inserts in here and there. Then I'm also going to put in a clip about something new that I also want to do, that one of my viewers kind of re-mentioned to me. And when I say re-mentioned to me, I've been thinking about it all along, but he just kind of confirmed that I do need to go in that direction. So let's get into it. I'm going to start off with a clip that was shot the day after the last posting was made. So it's a day after I posted the last video, part 39 of this haul truck, and I got a comment regarding the steering box. I had talked about it in 39 when I put the axle in and said that I had to arrange that. And I just posted that video. I just put the clip up before this episode regarding that arm being able to fit into there. And again, I'm going to take that apart before I had ever give consideration to using that. I would take it apart to make sure that that ball joint in here is going to fit. The one comment that I got was, and I had mentioned this in previous videos of it, but it was quite a while ago, is it's a manual steering box. It's not power steering, and God only knows that I would love to be able to get a power steering box in there, but I'm not really sure if power steering boxes were available in this model truck of this year that would adapt and fit into there. Okay, let me do my first insert here. I was talking about the power steering in that clip and realized that that clip was shot a couple of weeks ago. And I was talking about that I couldn't believe that power steering wasn't offered in there. Well, anyways, I went on eBay and was looking for manuals, shop manuals for heavy duty, medium duty Ford trucks of that vintage, 74. What I found was a shop manual on CD, and I'll show you put a pick and pick over here. I did find it. I just got it yesterday or the day before yesterday. I've been doing a couple of hauls, so I really didn't get a chance to look at it extensively, but I did get a chance to glance at it briefly, and I did find power steerings. And I'll show you one of the pics again over here. But anyway, so it is available, and let me continue on with the video from where I left off. Now you're looking at this and probably saying, though, this thing wouldn't fit, but that's a mechanical fuel pump on the engine, and it's coming off. Block off plate will go in there, or electronic fuel pump is going to be used. When I say fuel pump, it's a pump that pumps the fuel up to the injector pump. The other thing that was kind of mentioned was that most steering boxes on newer model trucks are forward of the axle, and they are very correct in that. Most steering boxes on later model trucks are forward of the axle, but I have an issue with that. And the issue being is that I have a compressor and a hydraulic pump down here, a large P pump or injector pump up here, and the frame tapers down from where it is that box is mounted up there. The frame is much wider than it is over here where it would be in front of the axle. So I have frame size issues, issues in locating it up here with relationship to engine components, and the other big problem would be the angle of the steering shaft coming from the steering wheel out to locate a steering box forward of the front axle. So now all of those issues could be overcome. As I replied in that comment, all those issues can be overcome. I mean, I could beef the frame up, but the problem is I can't, unless I put the steering box outboard of the frame rail instead of inboard where it's located now, I can't overcome the interference issue with engine components. I could overcome the issue with the angle of the steering shaft coming out of the cab and going to it by probably putting in some joints, like U-joints, into the shaft and redirecting it forward. But again, it probably become too complicated. I really kind of need to figure out whether I can find a power steering box that was with this model. I can't believe in 1974 that the F750 didn't have a power steering option. I'm really kind of surprised that this truck didn't have power steering, actually. But let's continue on. Let's talk about some other things too. In part 39, I talked about the wheels being 22.5s on the front and talked about maybe switching to 24.5s. Again, a viewer commented about me putting airbags in here, saying that he probably didn't think that I needed them. Well, I probably don't need them. What I would be using them for is to adjust ride height. In case I did go to 24.5s on the back, I could level the truck up by just kind of inflating those airbags. Let's talk about something else. So here is the sleeper layout. I've kind of laid these level and board across the frame where the sleeper ends. This board represents where that fairing on the back ends, and this level kind of represents where the actual cab of the sleeper ends. So I've got a spot in there where it's open in the back of the sleeper, but the fairing comes out this far. I don't have an issue with that at all, how far it sticks out, because the hitch point would be over the axle. That's where the ideal location for, like, the gooseneck, or if you were putting a fifth wheel plate in there, would be directly over the axle, so that the weight of the trailer onto the truck is directly over the axle. Now, given the size of this axle, given the size of these springs, I could actually probably locate it back farther if I wanted to a little bit, pull it back a little bit, but I really don't need to. I don't have an issue with that. My only issue is going to be appearance of the truck. Is it going to kind of look funny with that short rear end out behind that sleeper? And let me tell you what I've kind of been thinking about, and I haven't mentioned it before. I've actually been thinking about extending the frame out on this truck like a foot. So if I did do that, what I would do is actually have 2 rails, one for each side, made up that duplicated these rails exactly. And what these are basically are pieces of channel iron, but they are not a standard channel iron size. So what I would do is take, I think this is 1/4-inch plate. I would double check that, but what I would do is take, have somebody bend up 2 pieces of 1/4-inch plate that replicates these exactly, and cut the frame, put them in there, extend the frame out, and then I would have 2 pieces of channel made that I could put inside of it, so as kind of like a gusset plate or a stiffener to go across that. Just so that you know, I would never ever cut these things straight and weld them in there, even though I'm going to gusset and it would probably be fine. I would never do that. It would probably be some kind of an offset cut that had an offset in it, or kind of like a yeah, I can't think of the word they use in woodworking, and drawers and stuff like that. You know what I'm talking about. I just can't think of the word offhand. But I would never do a straight weld down. It would be an offset weld. But again, it's just something that's going through my mind. And the kind of the only reason for it, everything fits. The only reason for it is how the truck is going to look, being only that short in the back of it. I mean, I could always extend the frame rails back a little bit, but I don't want to do that because of the distance. If I center the ball up over the axle, the distance to the back plate here in relationship to the front of the trailer. Now, that's talking about a gooseneck trailer, because as you know, the gooseneck trailer is lower, and what happens is the gooseneck hitch comes up and goes up and then down with a leg that drops down onto the ball. So basically, the back of the truck and the front of the trailer are basically at the same plane, whereas a fifth wheel trailer is higher. Usually the bed of the trailer is at 4 feet, and it comes straight across. So all of this is underneath the trailer, whereas with a gooseneck, it's kind of at the same elevation, just extended back a little bit. So if I extended these things out, that would put it closer to the front of the trailer, and give me maybe clearance problems in turns. So I just wanted to bring that up, and again, I'm just thinking about it. I haven't decided one way or the other on doing it. It would be not that expensive to do it. As far as materials go, it would just be kind of a pain. You've got to get everything on the same plane and fixed so that when you detach it and move it back, you are on the same plane as the front part. The back part is on the same plane as the front part, and be able to get that in there. Again, it's just a thought, because everything else fits. What I'm kind of looking at is battery boxes on both sides, is steps up and to hold the batteries, and then the fuel tanks would be in back. There's a couple of fuel tanks that I've been looking at. I don't know whether they still have them, and we're talking about salvage yard fuel tanks, because new fuel tanks are extremely expensive. Not that I wouldn't put that money into it, but that money could be used for something else. So I am looking at 60-inch tanks, and that would be the end of the tank back here. And as you can see, the front of the tank up there is probably about 8 inches or 10 inches away from that, which would give plenty of room in front of the tank for the exhaust pipes, the stacks to come up through. But I kind of wanted to show you that. One of the things that I've got to do is, before I put that rear axle in, I really wanted to get the bearings and the seals in that rear axle taken care of. I've still got to get new U-bolts for it. Yeah, I've still got to get new U-bolts for it. I've got to see if those shackles on that existing axle, the bottom part of the shackle down there for the U-bolts, will fit that new axle. But all things to be addressed and to come. Okay, back to the present time. So I discussed lengthening the frame. At this point in time, it's pretty much a given that I am going to do that. How much I'm going to do it is still up in the air. Originally, I think in the video that, or the clips that I just showed, I mentioned kind of a foot. I'm kind of thinking more along the lines of 2 feet now. But one thing that has been suggested to me is that I go out to a truck dealership, kind of get a relationship of a Peterbilt. Well, I could go to a Peterbilt dealership and get a relationship of their cab and sleeper arrangement that is the same size as mine, the sleeper arrangement that is the same size as mine, and get a measurement from center of the front axle to the center of the first rear axle, and kind of base my truck on that. Now, if it's I know that they have varying frame lengths, but let me see what would be an average one. And I kind of will base it on that. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to throw a couple of clips in there discussing the front steering and how I tied that in. Okay, one of the last things that I discussed in the last video on the haul truck after I got the axle in is having to remove these arms from the steering box and the old arm that went to the truck that this axle came off of. I've got to get them off of there, kind of compare sizes of the ball joints from one to the other, and see what I can do about getting something on here for a replacement. when I do that, like I had discussed in the last video, I have to make sure that the wheels, tires are aligned straight and that the steering box is in the middle position before I can get a good measurement and a good idea of what I'm going to need to get in between those two things. But anyways, I'll bring you back after I get it removed. Okay, so in a bizarre twist of fate, I was able to get that old tie rod, pitman arm, whatever you want to call it, off of there. And the other one appeared to be very close. So what I did is I counted the turns on the steering box and went halfway, and the damn thing is within 1/8 of a turn of being centered with the old one. Now the only issue is, and I was able to get the old one up into it and tighten up that nut, and it appears to be tight. I mean, there's no play in that joint. So it appears to be tight. Now, I'm not going to leave that just for the sake of leaving that like that. I will pull this thing apart and make sure that that ball joint is fitting into that arm properly. But if this works out, that would be a bizarre coincidence. I mean, I could probably live with 1/8 of a turn being out one way, centered 1/8 of a turn one way. It means that 1/8 of a turn on the steering wheel, which probably wouldn't relate too much in the actual turning. In other words, I would be able to turn sharper going one way than I would be. I think I would be able to turn sharper going left than I would be able to turn sharp going right. So, but again, I'm you know, it's going to sit in there for a while. I'm not going to leave it in there. I've got to take that thing apart and make sure that that ball joint is fitting into that arm properly before I would even give consideration to leaving it as a workable item. I'll bring you back. Okay, we're back here behind the haul truck, and as you can see, the axle's down on the ground, and I didn't show it. I was originally going to put the clips in regarding me taking this axle out, but it would have made this video way too long. So let me save that. I'll put it in another segment, probably 41. But let me save that and just get to the point of the other issue or the other change that is going to be made. I've talked about lengthening the frame. One of the things that I've always thought about doing is putting an airbag in the back here. Well, one of my viewers, Brian, mentioned to me, not in the haul truck series, but in I think it was one of my shop updates where I was working on or explaining these shims that center the pins from the axle to the pin on the bottom of the leaf spring. He said to me, I really should put air ride or airlift airbags on this suspension. He says that this truck is going to kill you, kill your back, kill your kidneys, kill you because it's going to be so stiff of a ride. And he was absolutely right. I've thought about it. I've actually looked at other trucks to see it before he mentioned it, and I just at the time didn't want to think about getting into it. But here we are. There's two factors involved here. He's absolutely right about getting a better ride quality out of it. But one of the things that he was suggesting is go to a salvage yard and pick up a air suspension system off of a truck. Well, I'm kind of actually considering making my own. What I would do is lob this leaves off. So I would probably cut the leaf off and extend that plate, the plate that I kind of talked about in the last shop update. Extend that out farther with a bracket, a bottom bracket that would support the airbag back here. So what I would have is the springs up in front, which really aren't going to be serving a lot other than to stabilize the axle. I need to keep that axle stabilized straight and keep it from wrapping up on itself if you're pulling hard. So the springs would stay in the front to stabilize the axle. What I would probably do is lop it off somewheres, probably past this joint here, extend this thing out, and then build off of it to support the bag. So that air suspension would serve a number of features. It would give me a hugely better ride quality. It would allow me to adjust the height of the suspension depending on the load. But one of the biggest things that you can do with it, on either a fifth wheel or a gooseneck trailer, is you can use that suspension, jack the suspension up when you're parking the trailer, put the jacks down without jacking it up, and just lower the suspension on the truck to disconnect the fifth wheel or fifth wheel pin out of it, or disconnect the gooseneck. So you really never actually have to crank. And cranking a trailer up isn't a big deal when it's empty. You get that trailer loaded and try cranking it up, and you know that you've done something. But anyways, so that's the other thing that I'm thinking of. At this point, I'm not thinking of it. It's probably very well going to happen, and I'll bring you guys along for this and the frame extension, so that I can go into detail about why I'm doing it, how I'm doing it, and the reasons for doing it. So pretty much it's a given that I'm going to be doing this also. I'm probably going to build my own, although I will go to the salvage yard to see what there is available, and if it comes, because I know right off the bat that if I bought a salvaged air ride suspension for a rear axle, that I'm going to have to modify it extensively to make it fit this application. So as long as I have to modify it, I might as well just build the damn thing myself. Get an airbag that has the height capacity, the difference between low and high, that I'm going to be kind of looking for. And again, I haven't figured that out yet, but so I need to find a bag that has the range that I'm looking for, and then I would just build the brackets for it myself. Well, have the range and the lift, or the capacity, the poundage. I would probably be looking in the neighborhood of a bag that is minimum like 10,000 pound. So that's kind of where I'm at, guys, with this thing. So there wasn't much work in this video. Again, I will put the clips of me cutting that rear axle out and dropping it down in the next segment, or chapter 41. But anyways, that's it for this chapter, and I hope you guys kind of stick around to watch the fun. I thought the fun was beginning with the rest of the stuff. Now the fun really begins with extension of the frame and air ride suspension on the back. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Hit that like button. Subscribe. If you feel like it, share it with a friend if you think they're interested. See ya.